You know, there's always talks about the dangers of drunk driving. What about the dangers of drunk cooking?
Just as dangerous.
I wouldn't say just as dangerous, but pretty dangerous.
Yeah, nowhere near just as dangerous.
I don't know if it's a one for one. Welcome back, everyone, to S1E1, a show where each week we pick a different sitcom, watch just the first televised episode, and forgetting anything we might know about the future run of that show, rate it and decide if it's a show we want to greenlight or cancel. This week we're going to be talking about Him and Her. Him and Her went 25 episodes over 4 series on BBC Three. They were talking about episode 1, which was called The Toast, originally airing September 6th, 2010. So to get things started, I'm Jay Gags. With me as always, the boys, all the boys, Joe, Ferg, Nick, and Gordo. What's going on, guys?
Heyo.
Yo.
There is nothing good about Mel C.
There was a plethora of things Joe could have used for this episode, and he went with that one.
I didn't want to.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do it, and you're like, it's a little too crass on the top, right? I try to be a little better about that.
Well, listen, this show, well, we will certainly get into it as we go on, but
Oh, you guys understood what they said?
You couldn't?
yes, Gordo.
Yeah, this was not a crazy hard accent, man.
Hold on. First off, behind the scenes, before we even get into anything, before we even do the normal thing for the show, Gordo's always like, we need to do more English shows. We do good numbers with English shows. We got to do more English shows. And then just started off the rip and just make fun of their fucking accents as soon as we start talking. I'm sure they'll love that.
Just know, British fans, we love you so much. We're all sick and still recording for you, so.
Yeah, I will say to any fans listening, you can probably tell by most of our voices that most of us are not doing great right now.
Gordo's peachy.
I'm doing okay.
What's that, Gordo? I couldn't understand your accent.
I'm fucking peachy, dude. Oh, I'm sorry.
You're
Come
from
on.
Boston. Objectively, the worst accent in the world is the Boston accent.
According to you, Joe, you have this weird thing against where you're from for some reason,
I love Boston.
but you've suppressed your own Boston accent for some reason. Granted, a hard Boston accent just makes you sound dumb.
Yes. You ever seen somebody on Jeopardy with a Boston accent? They can say the smartest thing in the world, and you're like, well, that guy's a fucking idiot.
Yeah, but I mean,
It doesn't matter because they're on Jeopardy, so they're already smarter than me.
Joe, it's pronounced Jeopardy.
Fucking hate you guys.
So anyways, I want to welcome all of you guys to our first week of January, where we did the first 5 people that hit us up, their Spotify Wraps, and showed that we were in your top 5 podcasts. We wanted to give you guys picks as a way of saying thank you. I think next year we might have to do it where like we pick 5 of you who do it instead of just the first 5, because certain people get them available at different times and different metrics and stuff. But that is a conversation for another day. I want to thank all of you who sent us anything. It was very humbling to see how many people had us in your top podcasts. It's there are so many podcasts out there now and only so many hours in a day, and to think that we made the top list for so many of you really it means a lot.
And also, guys, happy 2025.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this is also the first episode of 2025.
Coming at you from the past. Woo!
Can you believe on CNN's New Year's Eve Live, Anderson Cooper showed his dong? I can't believe that happened. That was so weird.
I love Anderson
All
Cooper.
right, I'm happy. That could have been way darker, and you didn't go there, so I'm happy.
I think I may say this every year now, though at least the last couple, but if you go to our Instagram, which is S1E1 pod, you know, every week there's a preview for the new episode, a few days before it comes out. And I think I've brought it up in the past, but it has like the show and the title and the description, all that. And it looks like the old TV guide. Towards the bottom, it says S1E1 2021. And I think when I made it, I intended to correct it every year and update it. But it's really our established year. So it's like now to keep it at 2021 is like, it makes sense. But like when it was 2022, it felt weird. But now that it's 2025
Far
and
enough
like,
away, yeah.
we've actually gone a good distance, it's crazy to kind of see that.
Smelting and delting since 2021, the S1E1 podcast.
Right off the bat, this is, again, week 1 of January. This was Bex's pick. She's messaged us with so many show ideas that I think she's probably given us upwards of 1,000 suggestions of shows to do throughout her messages, which, believe me, we appreciate. And I think the pressure when she had to pick one of the shows of all of them for us to finally cover. So she landed on this one, him and her, and I had not even heard of it. I don't know about any of you guys.
Same, yeah.
Yeah, no, never.
So, getting to watch this one for the first time, she wanted to give us context. I said, please don't. It kind of goes against what we do for the show. We want to kind of get a fresh look at it. But I think nervous that we wouldn't like, necessarily the show I think that she presented to us with a thought train. But
I know we've discussed it before, but can we just briefly discuss how ridiculous it is? 4 series, 25 episodes.
It's a very different way over there, yeah.
It's silly though. Like, I don't understand.
Well, it's silly
that.
because you're conditioned for something so different.
No, I think I'm conditioned for things that make sense, and that doesn't make sense.
We're slowly starting to come around to that over here. I get
For
shows
sure.
with eight episodes now on
That is true.
Oh, that is true.
Yeah,
Good
we've
call.
gone away from the 21 episode seasons of a classic sitcom. It's definitely a thing of the past, I think.
I don't like it. And 25 by 4 doesn't work mathematically. That doesn't make any sense. So,
Well, there's almost always a holiday special or something in there, though.
One thing I love about British shows is they always have holiday specials.
Yep.
It's a big thing over there, yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, like the 6-episode series they do versus the, 21 episode season that we do. Yeah, it's Ferg's right. It's coming around. Most shows we see now is like 10 episodes seems to be kind of the standard now.
yeah.
That's a good number, though. That's a good, nice,
It depends.
round number.
I mean, you look at a lot of these classic shows that we did. We just did The Middle, a few weeks back at 200 and something episodes,
It's like crazy. At that point, it's much more of a full-time job if you're involved in it, too, because like they're writing and filming and doing this stuff like week to week to week to week, like all the way up through the summer. And then if you're the writer, you're like still writing over the summer. Like it's a grind for sure.
I think a lot easier when you're doing like the classic 3-camera style sitcom that's all like in a little studio. Like, I think it's maybe a little easier to pump them out when it's that style.
They have talked about it before, but think of those like hour drama type shows, right? Like think of like in Law and Order SVU or something. They do 21 episodes a season, and those are all an hour long. And then sometimes they have to react to something that happened in real life and then write one like South Park does, like super quick to reflect some real life event. Like that must be a fucking grueling job.
Probably easier for Law and Order because they already have the script of real life.
Right. But not a show that we'll ever cover, but like you think of like a show like the OC as well. And the OC that had like super long seasons of 1-hour episodes and all the drama and stuff that goes into those and shot more cinematically. It's like, how much time went into making this one season?
I don't want to say the number because I know it's a lot, but like Beverly Hills 90210 had some sort of like ridiculous amount of episodes. 293 episodes.
That's insane. How many? They came back, though, for a couple, right?
Yeah, but that's over 10 seasons. That's so...
Yeah, that is crazy.
So Days of Our Lives holds the record for putting out 100 episodes in 1 year.
Well, they're like daily, aren't they?
Daily cut, though, yeah.
And then they wonder why those shows get so weird when it's like, oh, my long-lost dead twins back for like, it's like... Yeah, like, of course, when you pump out that much TV, you're going to run out of normal fucking things to talk about. To round out this conversation, this show here is such a regular day in the life. And this show, with limited research, I did in the beginning, like I said, we try to educate ourselves in the show without over, spoiling anything. But this is a show that I think up until its 4th series, they never left their flat the entire time. Like it's in there.
I wondered about that. Yeah.
Is that a set? Is that a set or is that in an actual apartment?
I didn't see anything.
It must be a set, but they do a good job of making it feel real.
So I asked that because of how we had the discussion, off the air that would it be in a sitcom or not? And I came to the realization that if you add that studio audience laugh track, it 100% feels like any other sitcom, and that's when I was like, oh, it is a sitcom. And there was plenty of opportunity. I started to put them in my head while watching. I was like,
They're like, hey, fuck you, fat Kate Winslet. There is so much shrapnel thrown in this episode at people where I'm like, Jesus Christ. I had to actually look up. I was like, do people hate Kate Winslet? And it's just, it's a yes. It's a big tabloid issue, but like only
Why,
in the
though?
UK.
Yeah, people have.
They hate her because she was selfish and killed Jack.
I mean, to be fair, that's the reason to hate her, but it's one of those things that never carried on over here. So like in our culture, we didn't know that. I mean, so watching that, you're like, Jesus, why? It's also funny too, where you're like, oh, the individual lives of the Spice Girls are probably way more well known in the UK than they are here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sporty Spice. That was Victoria Beckham, right?
No, they actually go
No.
out of their way to say Mel C later, and they say her last name
That's
about
Scary
4 times in a row.
Spice, isn't it?
That's Mel B.
Mel B. That's why they go out of their way to have C and B.
Also, how do you not know that? How do I know that you don't know that?
I didn't know you was Spice Joe, okay?
That's no.
Yeah. Yeah, Spice Joe.
You know it goes something Spice. You fucked that up somehow.
Yeah, you could have said Joey Spice, and it at least would have fit in the way their naming convention goes. Glasses Spice. I don't know what to say.
Perky Spice over
No,
here.
fuck you.
See,
But-
that's a good one.
See, if you
See,
said
there
that to
you go.
begin with,
It took you a
would have
minute
been
to get
burn,
there.
and it would have been
Quirky
funny.
Spice.
You would have got such like a genuine laugh from everyone too have you said it.
For sure.
But instead of Corky Spice, you went with Spice Joe.
Which sounds
Just
more
as
like
funny.
squiggly porn, Joe.
1,000% when we hear the finished episode of this, we're gonna hear like Quirky Price. Nothing else is gonna be edited out.
So I want to go over a few things real quick. IMDb has this at 7.8. Rotten Tomatoes only an audience score, but 92% audience score. I mean, not bad numbers.
Once I caught on to the fact that they were never leaving the apartment, I kind of like, I don't know, I kind of like,
You like had to calibrate as to what you were watching.
right, yeah, like it changed my outlook on it a little
Same.
bit. Yeah.
And this is a show that if you want to watch him and her, it is available on Pluto for free. So you can watch along there if you
Respect,
so choose.
Pluto.
Love Pluto.
I love Pluto.
Keeping me busy during my work days, my backgrounds, keeping the dog upstairs entertained while we go out. Love Pluto.
Yeah, let's bring back Pluto as a planet, everyone.
Oh, yeah, that's still officially not considered a planet now, right?
I think so.
Didn't it come back? I thought it came back.
I thought it came back too.
We're gonna find out in the weird time that we missed recording this that the drones flying over New Jersey were sent by aliens from Pluto. And this is gonna sound so fucking weird.
How dare you make us not a planet?
It did in 2006, by the way. It was reclassified as a dwarf planet.
Oh, really? So we've been bitching about it and they fixed it almost 20 years ago?
This is way off topic. I understand this, listeners, but the AI overview that you get from Google says no, Pluto is not considered a planet. It was reclassified as a dwarf planet. So
What the fuck's a dwarf planet?
it's just a small planet.
Hold on,
like,
Google. So you saying that dwarfs aren't people?
It's not a person, technically, it's a dwarf person.
legitimately, yeah.
See, that's what happens with AI. It gets fucking spicy, it starts going its own way, and it's gonna fucking kill us all.
Well, listen, there was a point where it was debated like kids can't use Wikipedia to make their like book reports. And now you have just robots just searching the internet for anything they can find and spitting it out in like well-worded sentences and people accepting it all as true.
Yo, we'd all be in Mensa if we had AI in school.
Well, no, teachers have to use AI detection software now because so many kids use it. But now the AI detection software is detecting non-AI stuff as AI. And so, like, it's just not where we're
Do
living
you know
in a
how
weird
mad
time right
I'd
now.
be if I worked my ass on a paper and something said that I fucking used AI?
Yeah, it's happening to like graduate students who have to like write these like long things and they get AI checked and they come back as like partially AI generated without actually being AI generated. And like they have to go and like fight and like explain, like people are having to show like their like metadata from their like Google Docs forms that can prove like that they were actually typing it and stuff like that.
You're like, yo, it's your boy Ferg live streaming this paper I'm writing.
When we hit 100,000 downloads, I made like a thank you graphic to post, and like Instagram flagged it as AI, and I got so mad. I'm like, the fuck? Like I'm sitting there on Photoshop trying to do like, and I'm no Photoshop expert, nor is my work so crisp that like only a computer could do this. Like, trust me. And I got so mad. So I mean, I can only imagine like sitting there and like doing like a full fucking report and having it flagged that way.
It's fucking crazy though, because you're like, AI is writing people's dissertations for their graduate things, but it can't get fucking hands right. Like, what are we doing here? Why is it so smart one way?
The one stopping point.
Yeah, you know what? What AI can't seem to do? Try to make a graphic that says S1E1 on it. It's like near impossible.
And I was like, SEE1.
Has it figured out hands yet?
A
I
little
don't think
bit.
so.
A little bit. It's got more references.
I hate AI art. I've died in this hill before, but got no soul, man.
In any event, we have a lot to talk about, so I don't want to get too far into the weeds here. To get right into the show, opening scene is when we meet the couple, Steve and Becky. Basically, the show is all centered around this couple and in their flat. Like I said, this whole season doesn't even leave their apartment, let alone, so obviously this episode is the same. I will say right off the bat, great chemistry between the two. To watch a very first episode and see this couple that spends like the entire time like in bed, and I mean, honestly, they're very sexual with one another, very comfortable. Like, this looks like an evolved relationship right off the rip.
I got a little confused because I felt that too, and then like later on when like they argue a little bit, I'm like this when he's like, "This is my flat," blah blah, blah. I'm like, oh, they're not married, because that's what I like thought.
So yeah, I mean, they're a couple. This is Steve's flat. It's his place, but she pretty much, I guess, if I was to guess, they're at that point of the relationship where she's just there 24/7 anyways.
We discuss how disgusting this flat is, by
It
the way.
is disgusting.
Gross.
The thought entered my head multiple times. I wonder if this was real life, what that place smelled like.
Ugh.
Like poop, apparently.
Well, we'll get into all
We'll
that.
get that. But, there's definitely like takeout food and
Yeah, it's
dirty
gross.
dishes. The funny thing is they've got a sink in their living room, which is like a very old-timey thing. And part of that was so like if people are over, guests, you're eating, you can like wash your hands or wash the plates off and keep the room clean.
Thank you, because I couldn't make sense of that, and it was bothering me every time I saw it.
It's a very old thing.
Oh, that's weird.
It used to be very commonplace. Sometimes I was reading about it. I didn't know this. I had to look it up too. I was reading a lot of people had like wet bars in their houses, and that was part of it. Like you had running water so you could like clean out glasses and stuff. So especially in houses like a flat like that has no living room, no dining room rather, right? So you've got a kitchen. You're probably eating in the living room most of the time. So that's there to help you be like,
The whole outlay of that apartment or flat
I
is
couldn't
really
make it out
weird.
at first. I was like, is it a studio? I was like, no, it's got a separate kitchen, but the bedroom and living room look to be the same room, unless there is a separate living room we never see.
no, I think it's just that. I think it's the little bathroom, the little kitchen, and the one main like living room / bedroom.
So yeah, they're in bed, and right off the bat, first line we hear is Steve telling her, "You are very good at blowjobs." Like, oh, if you want to know the tone for a show, when that's the first line, you go, "Oh, okay."
It also starts with the Titanic song in the background.
Yes.
Which we'll get into.
Like, yay!
So, the opening conversation between the two is about her great fellatio skills and how good he thinks he is at receiving them.
That is a very funny line though. He's like, I'm great at getting blowjobs.
Yeah, and she's talking about how behaved he was. And then, like, he counters by saying, like, how noisy she gets, which just makes her feel self-conscious. So I don't know why he thought that was the right way to spin that conversation.
But it doesn't make her sound like a prostitute.
He didn't want to give her that kind of credit. He didn't want her to get the idea that she was as talented as a prostitute.
I do like the line though. He's like, well, not a professional prostitute, which is such a funny thing to say. Professional prostitute.
An amateur prostitute. How would you distinguish an amateur from a professional? Paid?
I don't know, because like in comedy, they say you're not a comedian until the first time you get up and the person before you announces you as this next comic, and that's when you officially become a comedian. I don't know what the first time a guy rolls down the window and asks, is that the first time? Is that when you're officially a prostitute?
I think it's just like, honestly, it's just a matter of attractiveness. I know you could be like a cheaper amateur and super attractive. It just doesn't usually work that way, because you know what I bet it is? I bet it's like drug addict versus not.
I don't know, man. Speaking of Pluto TV, I watch a lot of old episodes of Cops on Pluto TV, and you find a myriad of different sex workers, all of whom I would call professional, all of who have very different ages, looks, and drug addict
Yeah, I think you're still a professional. I think if you're like at a certain degree of hot, you get to call yourself an escort. But
Yeah, you get like escort and call girl is like a different branch.
Maybe it's having a pimp versus not having a pimp.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to do some side homework.
We got anybody in the industry out there? Reach out to us at S1E1 Pod and let us know. You know what differentiates you from the rest.
And as we're all sitting there, and they're all the two of them, and the two of them are sitting there and kind of joking around, having this conversation. She eventually has to get up and use the bathroom. She said she has to go for a wee.
A wee in the loo.
The shot widens a little bit, and they do this a couple times, which I like because the apartment's so small. You can kind of angle it that either you're looking at the bed, living room, and bathroom at the same time, or shift it and look at the bed, living room, and kitchen at the same time.
Yeah, you pretty much can always see what both people are doing.
Yeah, so the shot widens, and now you have him staying like he's like sitting at the edge of the bed, her going to the bathroom, and it's that I know some couples are more comfortable than others in the distance. I wanted to talk about this where you guys are at with this bathroom with the door open.
No, shut the fucking door.
Only for pee.
I'm with Gordo, only for pee.
I'm gonna never shut the door.
I'll pee with the door open sometimes.
Ugh.
My wife and I have been together now for 16 years, and we've always been if you're just peeing, door can be open, we're talking to each other, it's not a weird thing, or like
Jay,
I have to walk in and get
there's no
something.
chance you close the bathroom door every single time you take a piss.
I close the door. I swear to God, if I'm the only one home, I close the door every time. Right hand of God, every single time. If I'm completely alone in the house, I shut the door.
Where'd Jay's right hand go?
But that's that I've always been shut the door. That's been my thing.
It also depends just how bad I have to pee. Sometimes it's not time.
Fair. If there's ever an exception, that could be it. No, I mean, you guys know behind the scenes, like I don't love pee, poop, stuff like that. So like, I don't know. I like that as a separate thing.
I love pee poo stuff, and this part I didn't like. I'm like, oh, they have to show her. You have to hear her peeing, and little did I know it was going to get way worse.
One thing that bugged me about it was whatever. It didn't bug me, the fact that she was going to the bathroom. It bugged me the fact that her shirt was so low that she was definitely like peeing on her shirt. Like it was like halfway down her ass still while she's sitting on the toilet. And it's obviously to cover her more because she's probably wearing underwear or something that they don't want you to see on like off camera. But like, yeah, her shirt was all the way down. I'm like, she's going to poop on her own shirt right now.
It's a tough acting day too, where it's like, you ever sit on the toilet for more than like you should or whatever, and you're like, oh, my legs are asleep, like everything is whatever. Like that girl probably had to sit and do this scene for so long, sitting on a toilet, like whether
Legs
you're clothed or
falling
not.
asleep.
Like, yeah, like you're just gonna be uncomfortable.
Do you think it was a real toilet in that if she actually had to use it, they would let her?
If it was a set, I would say no.
If it's a set, no. If it's a real apartment, it's functional, but I think there's still a code of conduct there. It's like how you're never supposed to shit on a tour bus.
I think too with the rating system, you can show her fake peeing. If she real pees, it becomes something else. They would have to be like mature, like.
This is also, she starts doing like some sort of, it wasn't like a word search, right? There was some sort of a puzzle that she was doing on the newspaper.
Word? Your crossword?
They go back to it like, I don't think it's a crossword because they go back to it like 3 times because he reads it later and then he thinks about it at the end of the episode. I was trying to think of like what it might have been.
Yeah, they used to do those. I mean, they probably still do, but I don't read physical newspapers.
Also, what year is this supposed to be?
2010, I believe it's the year it's.
I think it meant to be the year it is being filmed in.
I'm just thrown off by them having physical newspapers and an old like box TV.
That did flag me a little bit.
Well, he says he found the box TV in a dumpster, though.
Oh no, I know he found it, but I think that's old even for finding a TV in a dumpster.
True.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. My last like CRT TV I threw out before my last move, and that was probably 10, 12 years ago, around this time.
Well, this is also like, we'll see more examples of it later, but the money they have collectively doesn't seem to be very lofty, and they don't seem to spend it the right way. He's complaining later in the episode about like the cost of a mango, yet they have like new gaming systems and stuff. It's just priorities.
Well, I mean, to be fair, mangoes are expensive.
What year was this again? Sorry.
2010.
2010. Okay.
So they're having a conversation about how they got home last night and trying to figure that out. Just regular banter as they're talking from 2 different rooms. And I know, again, I'm a little harder with the stuff than you guys, but did we have to physically hear her pee? Did they have to add the sound of the peeing?
Yeah, I would have believed she was peeing. I'd need to hear it.
They felt they had to up their game too after that because you got to hear a poo later.
I will say this though, part of this rang true to like a time in my life. Not all of it, but like the little bit where he's in the conversation where it's like, last night was fun, right? Like, yeah, but who drove us home? Like, that is definitely a conversation when we were like worse people that like I had had a bunch of times. And then the response of like, why was he driving us home when he wasn't out drinking with us is like another thing I definitely would have said around a certain time of my life.
Well, Joe, somebody put you in an Uber after you smeared butter all over their floor.
Oh no, buddy, that was way pre-Uber. That was running away as fast as I could out of somebody's college apartment.
Right around this point is when we hear the Titanic song being played through the wall.
For the second time.
Second time we hear it in the episode. And this is their neighbor who they're going, oh, he's watching Titanic again. After that, she asked Steve if he'll make her some toast. And he's like, no, because you're going to eat it in bed. I don't want all these crumbs. And she's like, no, I won't. And it's like, why can't you just have it as bread? And she's like, raw?
Raw bread instead of toast made me laugh. Never really thought about it as raw.
And you add the laugh track after that, and boom.
Yeah.
Sitcom.
Want to have it raw. Ha 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 ha. Yeah. I'm going to call it raw bread from now on, though.
You know, it's like how my mom says plain water.
You'd say raw toast.
But, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think, like, depends on the situation. There are certain times where toast is necessary. But I think by and large, if I was told I could only have it one way or another for the rest of my life, it would be untoasted.
I mean, I like just plain bread. I will eat a piece of just bread if it's good bread.
How come you would only have it untoasted? Because you can do everything with toast that you can do with bread. You can still make a sandwich. You can still do about anything.
I know. I think of like going to a restaurant and when you get like the bread and butter, and I know you can toast certain bread, but getting like just like the nice like bun, tossing a little butter on it, like that's like when bread is most enjoyed.
I don't understand why we're being forced to pick one.
I'm just saying. Well, it's one of those things like breakfast. You would never eat just bread with your breakfast. It's always toast.
Depends if it's fresh baked.
Not me. I'm not a toast guy, to be honest.
Traditional like barbecue where is it the Carolina barbecue or like the Texas barbecue?
They just give you a piece of white bread.
Yeah, and I love that. I think it's like I don't know why, but I love that.
It sops it up better. If it's toasted,
Yeah.
It's not going to sop anything up.
No, but toast is great at sopping up egg yolk.
Oh man,
True.
yeah. A nice runny egg with some toast.
While they're having this argument about her eating the toast and bread, he commits the cardinal sin of bringing up his ex-girlfriend and saying that that's what she used to do and like he hated it.
Yeah, this was a bad move on his part. But they also seem to, as we go on, they both suffer from like talking about other people sexually way more than anybody should in a relationship, and it never ends well.
I mean, this guy suffers from just talking too much, period. He's kind of insufferable.
Yeah.
Well, he brings up his ex. She never brings up an ex-boyfriend like that. I mean, the sexual talk against him, which we'll get into that much later. When he brings up his ex-girlfriend, Julie, you just see...
I think he knew what he was doing.
No, I don't know, because his face right after...
Yeah, he immediately reacts to saying
shit, I fucked up.
But no girl you're dating wants to be like your ex. It's like their program. They need to be different. So you say, oh, well, my ex did this and I hated it. Instantly. All right, I don't want toast in bed anymore or whatever.
As soon as he said, he walks up to her and now he's just watching her as she's sitting there on the toilet and she's like, don't watch me. He's like, you look so cute on the loo. He flips. He's like, it's fine. You can have toast if you want, because he's trying to get out of this mentioning his ex-girlfriend thing. And now she doesn't want the toast. So
Can I just say loo is such a nicer word than toilet?
I love Lou.
when she's like, no, that's fine. I don't want it now. Obviously, it's fine for Julie and her big fucking tits.
Yeah.
they weren't as big as they looked.
I don't know why that's the wrong response, but it's so the wrong response.
It was like, oh, how very disappointing for you. But despite her disappointingly gargantuan tits, you still found it in your heart to let her eat toast in your bed with you. What a saint.
Gargantuan tits. I think that's the first time those words have been mentioned on our show.
I wonder if we ever see this ex-girlfriend in the show later on.
I don't know. They'd have to. I mean, now with the benefit of hindsight,
Now I'm just curious because I'm picturing like Beth Chapman, like ditties, like,
Speaking of Pluto TV,
Wow, what a poll.
hey, R.I.P.
Yeah,
R.I.P.
Yeah.
I mean, those were some very, very big boobs.
I don't want to be the outlier here. Who?
Dog the
Dog
Bounty
the
Hunter's
Bounty
Bounty
wife.
Hunter.
Oh, okay. All right.
He was bounty hunting something in there.
What?
Them titties.
You trying to say that her boobs were so big that criminals hid under them and had a little
They could've.
criminal
I mean,
colony?
They could have.
Gordo's brain is like if you were to, like sometimes like your printer goes on the fritz and it can only print half the page. Every time like he starts to tell a joke, it just dies in the middle.
Well, no, it's funny because Gordo will be like, oh, this would be a time, this could be funny, but he doesn't have the funny.
Yeah, he thinks he's gonna find it.
He has the concept of a funny, but not the funny.
I'm funny. I'm like people's favorite because I'm funny.
You're like the people at a trivia contest who hit the button really quick because they don't want to not get the opportunity to answer the question, but then have no answer for the question. That's basically what you're consistently doing.
Oh, man, I would love to see Gordo on Family Feud.
Chicken.
Tell me no.
I would love to go on Family Feud. I love Steve Harvey.
Maybe we could make our own Family Feud. We could record it as,
Against a different podcast?
yeah, like we'll workshop that one maybe. That could be possible.
We could legitimately apply for Family Feud and just tell Steve Harvey we do sitcoms, and he'll be like, "Hey,
Oh, is that all it takes?
Have we done Steve Harvey sitcom?
We have
Yes,
you
we
Yeah,
had.
the Steve Harvey show. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah.
I will say, though, what should probably be a way to do that is I'm sure there is a low-budget Steve Harvey impersonator that we could find online that we could pay a couple $100s to moderate a game of Family Feud with, and I will pay that all myself if that is the case. I'm happy to do it.
He said it. Joe's paying.
To get back into this is the point where Steve walks back into his room and notices a giant bug on the floor. This is the first time I noticed the random sink in like the living room, bedroom area, because he pulls a mug from over there and like manages to have it so like this, like it was a giant spider. The spider's walking across the carpet and he uses the open part of the mug and like traps it. Instead of like then sliding a piece of paper or doing something to get rid of it, he just leaves the mug there in the middle of the floor.
I mean, understandable."
This entire episode, he just discards things by throwing them.
Yeah.
And it drives me nuts. I'm somebody who does that to a degree. I am flawed in that way. I'm trying to be better about like put it away, don't put it down. But watching this man live the way he did agitated the shit out of me.
When you're sniffing your underwear on the inside part of it, that grossed me the fuck out. And then he put it on.
Well, because it obviously smelled clean enough.
I don't know. There's just a point where just get it out of the drawer, clean them.
I don't think he's got clean ones. I think that's
yeah,
the
it
issue.
didn't seem like a place that has a bunch of clean folded laundry in another
Yeah,
room.
this is more of a, I've got 3 pairs of underwear that are dirty. I'm smelling the cleanest pair to put on. That's the kind of character he is.
You know, it's funny, Nick, you mentioned like throwing and leaving stuff somewhere. I think everyone will remember when we were younger, much like the Wet Bandits calling card was to leave the sinks on, Nick's calling card was to leave 80% of a Honeydew Mocha
It's
Madness
not
80%.
anywhere.
Somewhere, either whether it be in your car, in your house, on your porch.
I will
somewhere.
be honest. There were times I wasn't doing it intentionally. Like, especially in the car, I'm like, I don't want to fucking take this and throw it out. I'm just gonna leave this. But I didn't leave them. You guys always said I left them undrunk, and it was just that the ice melted and left like a
Fill
bunch
the
of
cup
fluid.
back up.
No, there were ones
coffee.
that were full separation. Like they'd been there long enough that the parts had unmorphosized from themselves.
I just threw out like there's this much coffee left in this cup right now. I got it at 10 o'clock this morning. I don't know why I get larges.
I don't know if you remember, but Karma came back and bit him in the ass one day when he left it in the comic book store, and Sean threw it,
Yeah.
and it
Oh
landed.
my God.
It landed perfectly.
Sunroof from 60 yards away. I made him clean that though.
He made like he made like a Johnny Unitas like toss down the street, and the coffee fell right into Nick's moonroof as he's trying to drive away.
It's like a 1 in a million shot that could ever
Oh
happen.
man.
I was so mad about that only because I didn't get to witness it. Like it happened right next to me. Obviously, like it hit the shifter and just exploded up out through the moonroof. But I would have been way happier to see that happen to somebody else. Obviously,
I forgot about that. So yeah, he's preoccupied with his bug. While that's happening, the doorbell rings, and she's like, "Don't let him in. It's Dan." And I guess Dan's like he's like someone who also lives in the same apartment building.
It's Joe Wilkinson, I think is his name. He's I don't know if any of you have watched Afterlife with Ricky Gervais.
Nick, we've talked about it before. I was going to see if you brought it up. He's so good in Afterlife.
He's the mailman in Afterlife, and I've seen him in something else too. He seems to be pretty much the same character and everything, or at least a variation of it.
Oh, he's one of those.
But I don't know. He's just one of those for me. Like, I know it's different for every person. He's just one of those, like, his presence just makes me giggle.
Same.
Like, he doesn't have to do anything. He just, the fact that he's there makes me giggle for some reason. And I was so excited to see him show up here.
Afterlife is one of those shows I wish we could cover, but it's just too dramatic when it's not funny.
I did not like him at all.
You're not supposed to in this show for sure.
No, he's supposed to just make you uncomfortable.
Yeah, he's kind of insufferable here.
Yeah, that's how I felt. Just really uncomfortable.
So he goes to before he gets the door though, he has to like close the door to the bathroom because I don't even know if I mentioned this before, but she did convert from having to pee to full on shit and still leaves the door open. You do, Ferg, as Ferg mentioned, hear her shitting as like you hear it plop into the water.
You don't poop with the door open. I'm sorry. You don't want to, and you just don't make
a line
the
you never
entire
cross.
place smell like poop. Yeah, they're like that's unacceptable.
So, so he shuts the door and then goes over and opens up the front door. That's where we meet Dan for the first time. And Dan, yeah, he's like a very interesting character. He's very like, he's not self-aware. He's very intrusive.
No.
I mean he seems like he's even like on the spectrum maybe, and that's maybe why they put up with him. But yeah, he just walks in and doesn't
Read the room.
like he has no social awareness.
There's this weird part where he's like asking them if they went out the night before and if they're hungover. Steve's like, yeah, I'm a bit, but she's fine. She does that thing where she has an egg before bed so she doesn't get hungover. And he's like, oh, right. Why'd she do that? And he's like, so she doesn't get hungover. He's like, oh, yeah, it's good, yeah. So what did she do? It was like such a weird exchange. I did look this up, by the way. Eggs can be a good food to eat before bed. It'll help with a hangover. It helps, like, they're high in protein and they contain amino acids, and that helps delay like alcohol absorption and stuff like that. So
Interesting.
I love eggs when I drink.
I mean, I would just usually chug a Gatorade before I go to bed. I don't know if I'm like gonna come home at 3 a.m. and be like, I'm gonna make some scrambled eggs.
I'm
But
lucky if I can remember to drink water before bed. So
No, you don't make it. You go to like Denny's or something or IHOP.
oh yeah, I mean, if you were gonna do something like that,
If you're out for the night, yeah, you stop somewhere to eat. I've made eggs, though, at night. Like, you come home really late and you're both hungry or whatever, and you're like, let's make something, it's breakfasty, and you go to sleep. And then you sleep for, 10 hours. You wake up, you're definitely less hungover.
there's always talks about the dangers of drunk driving. What about the dangers of drunk cooking? I
It's very dangerous.
I mean, just as dangerous.
wouldn't say just as dangerous, but pretty
Yeah,
dangerous.
nowhere
Yeah,
near
I
just
mean,
as dangerous.
I don't know if it's a one for one.
You remember that guy who went drunk cooking and killed a whole family coming home from church?
Well, I mean, I guess technically you could burn a whole house down with a family,
That's true.
right? Yeah.
Who was just coming home from church?
Yeah.
About the guy who drunk cooked and killed a whole bag of Ore-Ida French fries.
I do love eggs, though. I know we've talked about it before. I love them all.
From your head down to your legs.
Legs?
Yep. You're damn right. I don't like how much they fucking cost nowadays for these tiny ass little eggs, spending $7.50 on a dozen.
Yeah, thanks, avian flu.
Not cheap. And I'm only buying the organic eggs, too. I'm not fucking around. Those are even more expensive.
My mom finds a way to buy these. I forget where she gets eggs sometimes. She'll be like, oh, I bought a dozen eggs. 8 of them were double yolk. I'm like, that can't be good. Like, whatever they're modifying these eggs with, like, that's
GMO shit right
Just
there.
next
yeah.
to the nuclear power plant.
Yeah.
statistically,
Like
like, that
Chernobyl
shouldn't
farms.
happen.
Why are they so cheap?
Chernobyl farms, yeah.
So Dan's trying to make small talk. He's like, oh, I've been watching Titanic again. He's like, yep, we heard. And he goes, Winslet's tits.
I laughed so fucking hard when his response was just Winslet's tits. Also, imagine watching a 4-hour movie over and over again for 6 seconds of boob. That is so fucking funny.
This is pretty full circle. Titanic is on Pluto right now upstairs in the kitchen. Just came on while we were eating dinner.
And I don't know, this might have been a line that you may have not caught because of the accent, but he does say, "Thank God for the pause button."
I didn't catch that, but
And we figure out later why he's so into this, but
Yeah. But imagine, like, I mean, this isn't like 2010 porn's pretty accessible. You know what I mean? Like the idea of, we talk when we were younger and things weren't around so much and you made do. But to watch the entirety of Titanic just for the scene where she's laying down, getting drawn.
Another reason why I question the year of this.
well, no.
None of them have smartphones either. They all like have flip phones and like a house phone.
Yeah, we're on the cusp of the smartphone at this point.
I didn't have a smartphone in 2010.
You didn't have a smartphone in 2020.
I was gonna say, you were like, you're like, I'm gonna need to talk to these. I'm gonna need to find a way to talk to people during this pandemic. I might have to get one of them iPhones.
I wasn't that bad.
I also think that these guys are not on the higher economic spectrum as well.
Well, I was gonna ask you guys when it came up, but for the sake of this conversation, I'll just bring it up now. We see her playing a video game later in the episode. Did you guys identify what game it was?
It was Gears of War.
Okay, I was gonna say, I knew one of you would know it.
But I don't think it was the correct sound.
I figured, because that's why I figured their priorities are just shot. So, like I said, he's complaining about the price of a mango, but they have to have up-to-date video games.
But that said, too, I bought my first new video game system in like 25 years this year, and the only games I downloaded on it were made a long time ago. Like, you could just be playing old games, you know?
You got to get Turn Up Boy tax evasion that Facebook keeps suggesting me.
Gears of War came out in 06, 08, and 2011. So
Okay. So it's around that
So
time.
it's probably the second one that they're playing. But yeah.
Yeah.
A 2-year-old game is still pretty new.
Right. Especially
Yeah.
they probably filmed the year before, all that. Yeah, it makes sense. Right around here, Steve's phone rings, and it's Paul. You hear him say, like, "Oh, I hope you're with Laura." What? And, like, Steve's, like, while he's on the phone, he's trying to, like, walk around to, like, not be next to Dan while he's on the phone. But Dan just isn't picking up on that and is just following him around everywhere, going, like, "Hey, what's going on?
This
what's he
was my
saying?"
favorite part of the episode. Him wanting to know.
I would have swung at him if that was like a real life thing. If it's such an obvious thing when your phone rings and you like walk off, like it's an international cue. Like everyone knows, oh, he's walking away because he needs to like talk in another room. Like I can't hear this.
What's crazy about this, though, is that this is texting behavior to me, though. Like, if I was in the same situation and wanted to tell one of you that, I'd be texting it. I wouldn't be calling you. You know what I mean?
No, you fool. Then you leave evidence.
Mm.
You don't leave a paper trail.
That's true.
Berg, it sounds like you've had some experience in this world before.
No, I'm just a professional liar.
Fair.
So you hear Steve going, "Oh, you didn't. Not sporty. Oh, you filthy bastard." And he's like continuing on when he eventually hangs up, he's telling Dan, like, Paul spent the night with a girl who looks like Sporty Spice. And I like that it wasn't even the real one, which for the sake of like this show they could have went with, but decide to just make it look like a girl that looked like her.
I just love that he says Sporty Spice and they both grimace. Like, what did this poor woman do? They're both like Sporty Spice. Ugh.
It reminded me of when you remember when Ryan comes back from like after he gets fired and he comes back and he says, "You remember so and so from the 4th season of Survivor?"
Yeah, look just
Up
like
to the
her.
girl who looked just like her. It wasn't even like the D-list Survivor contestant, just somebody who looked like her.
And then they start talking about, do you think she does back to front? And like that's like this big thing that keeps coming up, which is funny. Like I just assumed.
I went right to wiping, to be
Me
honest.
too. Butt nuts.
I assumed
Asked him out.
no. I assumed like butt to V. Like
A to V.
I think that's what he meant.
Yeah, that's what
I thought
it is.
that's what they
I
was.
looked this up and I was like, because I obviously back to front wiping is like a thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's like a thing. And then I looked it up and
It's
like
a
there's actually
psychotic
like
thing, but
yeah, it's a terrible thing. It's the wrong thing. But if you look up that sexually. There's a whole thing where it's like, this is brought into the world by this show, and they reference it all the time, and it's never clarified. It's like a running gag.
Okay.
Oh,
They
so
didn't-
it's
I thought they
Yeah.
clarified it later in the episode.
He starts to explain it, and it
And they never
sounds
do.
like he's talking
so
about...
they intentionally probably cut it so you don't get the full thing.
So apparently, in a number of episodes, they start to explain it and then don't.
Huh. Interesting.
But I also thought of Pete Holmes' weird bad man videos where he says that he had sex with the girl, and he's like, in an order that would surprise you. Ass my fetch. It fucking makes me laugh so hard every time.
So yeah, so Steve's asking what back to front is. Now Becky walks out of the bathroom. She's asking what back to front is, and he goes, "Oh, that followed you out," which is like, it is like there is. I'll tell you, like I hate like bathroom stuff, but just those little things like that did make this feel so real. Like the little details like that.
They do a great job of making it feel real. Yeah.
So I'll say like things like that is a small example, but like those little things make this more real than your standard
You
show.
know why? Because most shows like this won't cross that line, right? Like there's always that like difference where that like separates it from real life, right? And so when you add things like that people don't want to necessarily see on TV, yeah, you might not want to see it on TV, but it does have the effect of making it feel more real.
Yeah.
I think it feels real too when after he's like, "Oh, it followed you up. That's so gross." And she's like, "Want to have sex?" And he's like, "Yup, okay." Like that's so fucking real.
That
you know?
grossed me out actually. And he's like, she like just pooped and he's like peeling her underwear off. I'm like, I mean, go
As long
take a
as she
shower.
wiped properly.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
Yeah.
Becky's trying to make small talk with Dan now and asking him how his day was. And he's like, "Oh, or at the weekend in general." He's like, "Oh, peaks and troughs. I would have preferred to have spent it with a Spice Girl, but," and like he gets like cut off. He's like, "A Spice Girl?" He's like, "Oh, look at the time, better go." And like looks at his like arm and takes
With
off.
no watch on it.
Here's the thing. So as soon as he leaves, Steve gets into a rant about how he hates when people do that. I do that all the time. I do the fake watch look all the time.
I just took my watch off, but I always have a watch.
Yeah, I
on.
usually have a watch on.
Yeah, because I have one on. I feel like I haven't done that in a long time.
But I never have a watch on, and I often do the fake watch look.
Yeah, but you do it to be a dick. He's doing it to get out of a room.
Yeah.
The date on my watch was wrong the other day, and it fucked my whole day up. Like, I screwed up so many things at work. It was off by one day. And Gordo, we were in another chat about something was getting released. I was like, "No, it's coming out today." And you're like, "No, it comes out tomorrow." I'm like, "No, it's today." And then I looked and my watch was wrong. I screwed up like, probably 25 minutes worth of paperwork. So I kind of wish on that day that I did do the fake watch look and didn't.
I wish it went a different way and you went into work on a Sunday.
Dwight style.
The Dwight thing, yeah.
You'd know right away because that part of Boston is a fucking dead zone on Sundays. There's nothing open.
It's even weirder when you consider I work from home.
No one's around in this office.
Wow, traffic was great.
Yeah.
After Dan leaves, now Becky's asking Steve, like, "Why are you guys talking about Spice Girls? Like, you guys still are into the Spice Girls?" He's like, no. And she's like, keep trying to like pry out of him why this was a conversation. And he's trying to get out of it. He's like, "Come on." And like they get into bed. And like you said, he's like, now they start making out. He starts like to, drop her underwear a little bit. This is, 2 seconds after taking a fresh shit. And her phone starts to go off. So she crawls over. He gives her a nice little ass smack as she's reading a message.
That's super real.
That was real.
Super real, yeah. And also a little harder than I expected on a sitcom. Where I was like, he like really hits this girl's ass.
That was again I guess chemistry between the two, but it feels very real between the two of them. She's like, "Oh no." And looking at it like this poor thing, and it's like, "My sister," she says, "Paul didn't come home last night. Have you heard anything?" Now Paul's the guy he was just talking on the phone with, who spent the night with a girl who looked like Sporty Spice. And he's like, "Paul, no. She's just being a drama queen, I bet. Like, she's probably texting everybody. He's probably fine." That's, tough spot to be in, right?
And we also get from here, like, the relationship, obviously, he's best friends with his girlfriend's significant other, too, right? So you, like, see how small this circle is.
Yeah, maybe Paul shouldn't have texted Steve or called Steve to tell him about it right away, though.
Maybe hold that off for a later conversation, yeah. Maybe go fucking home first.
At the very least, be like, I haven't talked to Laura yet. If she calls her sister, tell her blah, 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 you know?
It's his own fucking dickerous hubris, though. He has to tell his friend that he got laid last night, even though he knows it'll put him in peril, before going home, straightening out the story, and then telling him later. That's also very real, right? Like, that's a thing a guy would fucking do.
He tries changing the subject. He goes to kiss her again. She goes, oh, we're missing cash in the attic. He's like, we're about to have sex. He's like, oh, okay. So they start like kissing again. And you hear like this noise. And he goes, was that a fart? It's like, no, it was my tummy.
Well, it sounded like a fart.
I think it did sound more stomach growly
Yeah, I agree.
upon a second listen.
It was on the line, but yeah.
Could have been either or.
Turns back into, again, her asking him if he'll make her some toast.
This is one of those like younger versus older things too, where she's like, I don't like having sex on an empty stomach. It's like, well, I'm 38 years old and I only want to have sex on an empty stomach.
Yeah, I noted that. I was like, what an interesting situation.
She's probably just hungover and wants.
No, she had an egg last
She had an
night.
egg, she's fine. Yeah, and she had a poo, so now she's hungry.
She made it
Oh,
out of that
can
room.
you have? Oh, I just figured that out. She had like bud mud poop. Like, remember, like when you would take like
No,
poops?
this is gonna be one of them Gordo things where we all roll our eyes.
Yeah. I don't think that was ever. As a matter of fact, I hate to fucking do this. I really don't want to get into it. But you hear her poop. You know it's a normal one because you literally can hear it drop into the
Yeah,
water.
Yeah, you hear like a solid splash.
I didn't want to have to relive that, but thank you.
Sometimes there can be like thunder with rain. Like you can have. I'm just saying that it's day after drinking poop, so it's real bad.
It can be, unless you
Yeah.
eat an egg and soak up all the bad stuff, which apparently
So
she
then you
did.
have
because-
protein beer.
She also probably wasn't drinking beer.
She's English.
Could have been cider. That's actually worse.
That's way worse.
That is worse.
I think I'd actually side with Gordo if she was having cider.
I'm just saying. I'm just throwing it out there.
Anyways, so the shot widens and now we see like the bed, living room area on one side, we see the kitchen on the other. Where while he's heading into the kitchen, she's like, Steve, why is there like a mug face down on the floor? And then she goes to lift it, revealing the spider. And then he like sprints over. Now they're both like standing on the bed.
It's the fucking Tom and Jerry with the eek on a chair, like.
Oh, that's how I am.
She's like telling him to chuck it out the window. He's afraid. He's like, no, you can get AIDS from a spider. She's
This
like,
is a
you
fucking
can't.
crazy
Well,
line.
first he says if you step on it, it could have babies, and
That's fair.
that's cockroaches. That's not spiders.
Yep.
Spiders can do that. Well, some spiders have like the egg sac. Like some poisonous spiders have like that egg sac in them.
Yeah,
Yeah, it can happen.
but cockroaches ones can survive like in your shoes, and like you take them home. That's why you never squash a cockroach.
Yeah.
Do we know if
Yeah.
that's true? Can a spider hold AIDS if it was crawling through the blood of an AIDS victim?
I think once the blood is out,
It's once it's airborne, it dies after X
it's
amount
pretty
of
much
time.
dead. Yeah, so that wouldn't be an issue.
AIDS spider is the scariest spider.
So now he grabs the mug and he covers it again and like jumps back on the
I'm
bed.
sorry. Earlier, did he call it a black widow?
I didn't.
I thought he
I didn't
said
hear that.
which would explain why they're so scared. But I
No,
I
black
wasn't-
widows are tiny. I've worked in produce for years. I've come across many of them. They're more common than you think. It was just like the one time it makes the news is when it gets home with somebody. We'd catch plenty before it made it to that point.
I also think that spider is too big for England.
I think they're trying to show just how grubby they are that they have giant bugs in their dirty apartment flat.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess it's not usually that's in a warmer climate, but like we had such bad spiders at our house and they kept breaching the perimeter and coming into the house that we had to like call a company to like bug bomb our garage and spray stuff on our lawn because we were getting so many of them. And I'm like, look, I will never fuck with a bug outside, but if you breach the perimeter, like I have to do something about
That's
it.
how
We had,
I
like,
feel.
we had the baby crawling around and these giant spiders were there and I had to keep catching them in cups and that was like fucking terrifying. So I ended up paying some company to come and do that shit.
Where you are, is it what, wolf spiders? Is that what you deal with?
Yeah, I think so. They're huge.
Jeez, Joe, between the giant spiders and fucking bats.
Yeah, I know. And again, you've been to my house. I'm in a city. It's not like I'm in the woods.
All them fucking vampire moose.
Vampire moose are the worst.
So the two start kissing again. Doorbell rings. she's saying ignore him. He's like, I can't. He gets up to like grab the door and then asks, do you want to clear the bed for the fuck fest? And she's like, okay. And then he even turns around at what he said and went, fuck fest. And she's like, yeah, what?
Funny, because I'm like, why can't they ignore him? And then I realized you can hear through their walls. That's why they hear Titanic all the time. And
It's about around now that, and I don't know if any of you were getting here, but has anybody else wondered what the desirable part of this guy is? Because he's disgusting. He's like, I just don't understand.
see, I got that too, but then I started to realize she's no cup of tea either, and they found each other, and I think it's
Yeah,
just a
that's
good
what I
fit.
thought.
But she's a babe, though. Like, that's the difference,
yeah,
right? Like,
right.
This dude has toilet paper in his fucking foreskin, and she's a babe.
I can only look through the eyes of someone who's only attracted to women, though. Yeah, she's attractive. I don't know where most females see him.
I got this man. He's a handsome guy.
I wouldn't say he's like objectively ugly either.
No.
But like, yeah, they're both kind of gross. She shits with the door open and doesn't have a place to stay. So like, she's not like doing that well herself. She's sitting there playing video games and shit. Like, she's okay with like the only means of food in the house being bread.
Sex farting.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, they're not too far from one another. They seem like a couple that's meant to be together.
They give me Zach and Miri vibes.
For example, we talked about him just throwing shit away like everywhere. After the whole spider thing, she doesn't say pick that up when they put the cup back on top of it. So she's exactly the same as him.
But as he's going at the door, he does have the paper, and like I said, it's the same question she was looking at when she was on the toilet. And it was something that said like, all tall men mind the mad arithmetic. So I don't know what kind of word problem that was, but it comes up multiple times. So I didn't know if there was something you guys knew anything about.
No, I don't know if it's specific to like that paper. It could be like the Daily Mail or something where they just do a weird specific thing every week on like the Sunday paper.
He does open the door for Dan again. While that's happening, Becky's phone starts ringing him, so she picks up and she's talking to her sister Laura now as she's playing a video game. And you cut to Steven, who's like trying to, put some bread in the toaster and make that toast for Becky finally. But like the toaster's not working at first, and he has to like fix the fuse in the wall. And Dan's like, "What are you making?" Toast. Oh, very posh. Like he's making something very fancy.
What's insane to me is after all the Spice Girl talk, he says, "Oh, very posh," and I was like waiting for the Posh Spice joke, and then that never came.
Yeah, no, he was legit impressed by toast, I guess.
I will say that one of my favorite things about this is the little asides everybody says. Like when she's like, "Oh, I think I have to have a poo as well." He's like, "Charming." Like, "I'm making toast." Posh. Like there's always these like little one word things that like end a sentence that make it really funny.
So Dan saying how he just read an article about melons, so he's thinking about going to grab some fruit at the market, and like, "Hey, you want to come with me? Like, grab some melons?" Becky could come too. It's like, "Oh, I'm sure she'd love to, but we're busy this morning." He goes, "Sex?" He's like, "Yeah." And he goes, "I heard her hollering earlier." And Steven goes, "Don't say that."
The best response though, not like, "Hey man, be quiet," or like to be angry, like, "Don't fucking say that." Just like, "Don't say that." Like it's so real.
Because like Dan's kind of creepy. He's like pausing Titanic to look at tits. So now the idea that he's like listening to them have sex. Listen, we've all been in situations in life where you've heard someone in another room, whether it be a roommate or the house over. Like everyone's heard it at some point. Other people having sex elsewhere. But like, I feel like when Dan hears it, he's like, "Ooh," like ear to the wall, So it's
He's probably cranking
situation.
when he hears it.
Yeah, he's like enjoying hearing it.
Especially knowing she fucks loud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the move is usually just turn the TV up. We've all lived in apartment buildings, like you said. We've all heard that before. You just turn the TV up and pretend it's not happening. I had roommates who lived, well, not roommates, but neighbors who lived above me who had very loud sex every night. And there was like no way to get away from it. And they would listen to fucking records, and all the records were fucking old shitty records that would skip. So it was like a madhouse of just like people you didn't want to hear fucking, and then records being like because the grooves would catch. And I was like, I think someone is trying to make me go fucking insane.
Was that when you used to call your parents your roommates?
Aw. How dare you? I would like to think that they would have better playing records.
it was like, I don't know if it was like a cookie or something, but like Dan just like finds a box open and like just starts eating.
They're biscuits.
A bit, yeah. So of all the things, like
Which is a cookie.
if he wasn't already like somewhat insufferable, just taking it upon himself, and he's just sitting there like chewing loud, and he's like looking. He goes, "Have I outstayed my welcome?" And just Steve's yes, yeah. He's like, "Oh yeah, no problem. I'm just gonna go get that fruit now." Takes off.
Free cookie.
It was the only time he was self-aware is when he started eating that. Went, "Have I overstayed my welcome?"
I will say that, let's jump ahead though. He eats the cookie, but then he does come back with fruit for 2 later.
True.
He does.
After Dan leaves, Steve goes to bring the toast into the bedroom area. Surprised to see like Becky like kneeling on the bed with like her shirt hiked up, like holding a vibrator against her. And I was like, whoa, like what the fuck's going on? But we did hear on the phone earlier her talking to her sister and basically telling her to like come by, and she could like, you know, of course he won't mind, like basically saying like, yeah, you could come by here and figure this all out. So we know that she has ulterior motives.
Now, did anybody have, so she eventually says like, okay, well, how do you want to watch me? And gives him choice of any position. Was anybody surprised? I laughed so hard when he just immediately, his like eyes lit up and he goes, on the bed, ass down. Fucking killed me.
And then he's like, I thought you didn't like to be watched. It's like, no, I don't mind, you know? And that's when if you do something for me comes up. Like what? Like letting Laura pop around? And he's like, Laura, it's like, come on, it's my sister. While they're having this argument, though, she's like luring him over with the vibrator. So like basically like he's boner brains like, yeah, she can come by. That's fine. That's fine. But here's what I don't get, right? So I get that ultimately sex is the goal, right? You know, but the idea of him watching her with her vibrator is more of like a fantasy thing that she usually says no to, but he pounces right on her and they're going to just start having sex now. So he was in the moment going to give up the fantasy to do the thing that he could do with her anyways.
I had an issue here too where I was like, why is he pouncing? He should be like sitting in a corner chair with a cigarette. Like, it doesn't make sense if that's your fantasy. Yeah.
I get that, like in that moment, like you want to have sex, but like they have sex constantly. And this is the forbidden fruit kind of situation that he's finally going to get. And then in his own brain gets so excited that he's going to bypass it.
And we find out in the situation too that he bought that for her. Like, it's obviously his thing.
Right. But not that that matters, because as soon as he jumps on her, the doorbell rings and she's like, oh, that must be Laura. He's like, already? Well, she was already like basically here when I told her she could come by.
This is a very funny thing though. It's like she knew she just had to string him along for like, I don't know, a minute and a half total before she popped in.
And like he's like, so when you asked me if I want, like he's putting together like this was all like a play from the jump. She goes to get the door, and that's when we see Laura for the first time, her sister, and her sister's like super upset, and she's this very like, I don't know like how to explain her like demeanor. She's very like soft toned, like look at me, I'm shaking, but like she's not really shaking.
She's kind of like just defeated.
Nick, is she the girl from the dinner party episode of the IT Crowd that has
Okay, so I was wondering about that. Not that specifically, but she really looks like somebody, and I couldn't figure out what it was even after going through her IMDb. So maybe that was it.
I looked up her IMDb. I didn't see her being an episode of that, but she did have a ton of UK TV credits. I may have missed it.
Was she also in Afterlife?
I don't think so. I mean, she might have been. She might have done like a 1-episode thing.
Yeah, because there's something about her, and I couldn't put my finger on it.
Is Afterlife a sitcom?
No,
half and half. It's
I mean,
it's a sitcom in the way that like a half of Kevin Can Fuck Himself is. It's like the funniest sitcom in the world, and then it gets super fucking dark.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to spoil anything, but Afterlife is Ricky Gervais is just like fuck the world after his wife dies. And like he can't get over it, and he has just like given up on being a nice human being, and like it's just that, as I explain it, it's more of a sitcom than I think we think it is. Like it's definitely something we could probably do. I just don't know if they're half-hour episodes.
I think they are, but like when it's funny, it's the funniest thing in the world, and when it's heavy,
it's hysterical. Yeah,
it's fucking dark. Like he basically just watches VHS tapes his wife made for him when she was dying. As like the interludes to everything. It's very hard to watch those, yeah.
Anyways, yeah, Becky and Laura walk over to where Steve is. Becky announces that she's here, and she's talking about how I couldn't even go to work, and asking Steve, "Have you heard from him?" He's like, "Oh no," but then I'm sure he's fine. He's a big lad. I'm sure everything's what do you say, tickety boo?
That must be what the English kids say.
Must be. Says, "All right, I need to piss." And Becky's like, "Thanks for sharing that with us." So he gets up and runs over to the bathroom, and the two girls are still talking, and she's trying to explain. Laura's trying to explain to her sister Becky, like, I tried leaving a message and all this. As Steve gets to the bathroom, as soon as he's about to piss, there's still a toilet full of shit, and he like nearly gags and like runs immediately back to her and goes, "You didn't flush."
No, he says, "You did
Yeah.
a shit. You did a shit and
You
didn't
did a
flush."
shit and you didn't flush.
This is Hippocratic Oath territory. This is do no harm. You just flush and you don't make a fight.
Her, I mean, I'd be pretty pissed.
Sure, but like, are you gonna start a fight about this? I feel like that's a bad fight. I don't want to have.
Her logic was bad too, because Dan was there. She didn't want Dan to hear her flush the toilet.
Yeah, her logic is terrible.
Also, I don't blame him for trying to embarrass her because she just tricked him into getting out of sex to have his sister over.
That's true.
That's a good point too.
Yeah.
She is at the mercy of him being
And
mad
I
at
don't
her
want to
already.
spoil too many of the jokes because we'll see it towards the end of the episode. Her style of joking is like pretty fucking mean. So
Right?
So I guess like this isn't too off from something she would do to him.
By the way, tickety boo comes from the phrase, "That's the ticket." I don't know how it became tickety boo. It's its origin.
That's the ticket.
I was gonna say, and John Lovitz hasn't made an appearance on the podcast in a while, so I'm really glad that he popped in now. Big horny bird, John Lovitz.
Horny bird.
A big unflushed toilet.
So he's going on and on about the shit smell. While they're arguing about it, he's like kind of distracted. He's like zeroed in on her. And Laura's trying to remind him, "Hey, there's a mug on the floor. Watch out, there's a mug on the floor." And finally he just snaps at her and goes, "Yeah, there's a giant fucking spider in it." After that, Becky's asking her sister, like, Dan upstairs? And she says, "Pajamas?" And I really wanted to know what that meant.
I'm guessing he just always wears pajamas. And that's like their colloquial nickname for him.
Pajama Dan.
So you call it like, "Oh, it's pajamas." Remember the guy who was like walking man or walking guy in our town, right? Like that was just what we called him. Like I'm sure they just call that dude pajamas.
Oh, okay.
This is when we get a little context to the whole Titanic thing. Because through the sister, we're finding out that he's watching it for the fourth time. And it's because his ex-girlfriend looked like Kate Winslet.
To which they say, "No, she didn't. She was just also fat and posh," which is so fucking mean. Kate Winslet.
I thought Kate Winslet looked pretty good in that movie.
Yeah, I did too.
I don't think she's ever been.
Did she get fat later in life?
I
She
think
did.
that's part of the thing with the like tabloids and stuff would like rail on her for being overweight. But I don't think she was ever that big. Like I think it's just one of those weird things.
We were all like, 11-ish when Titanic came out?
Yeah, so she looked good in Titanic to 11-year-old Gordo. But I remember my mother used to get like People magazine and like National Enquirer, and they would like rail on that poor girl.
Why? Like, what am I
She's
missing?
definitely not fat. I'm looking at her now.
Right. She's never been.
She ain't fat.
Well, she was
She's-
never like Hollywood skinny.
I think that's the issue though, is because she wasn't like Hollywood
Yeah.
skinny, but she's never been like anything but a normal looking woman. I don't understand calling her fat.
I just remember reading like the headlines and like reading People magazine because back in the day you didn't have a smartphone and that's what we had in the bathroom, and she was always in it.
Maybe it was less harmful to call someone that isn't fat than it is to call a fat person fat.
Maybe.
I don't know. I feel like it's going to cause a complex and it's mean either way.
I just came across, so I just Googled it. Why does everybody hate Kate Winslet? And it was a Reddit thread of somebody asking and is perturbed just like we are. And one of the top comments was, "Them titties were never hated on by the boys I grew up with." But there's also nothing definitive. I mean, some of it is like they didn't like her acting in the Titanic. I mean, nothing that would justify that much hate, really. Like, so
I mean,
don't
she's an
really know.
awful person in Titanic. I'll give it to them, but you got to separate the artist from the art.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like all the people that bullied the actor that plays Joffrey in Game of Thrones out of acting.
She's faced significant body shaming and criticism.
That's gonna be rough. You do such a good job in a movie that people decide to start attacking how you actually look in real life. It's just like so fucking cruel. Yeah, they're having a conversation about all that. This is when Steve mentions, yeah, and Dan wanted me to go buy fruit with him. Like, who goes out of their way to buy fruit? And Becky's like, oh, I'd love a mango. He's like, what? He's like, what will you do with a mango? She's like, eat it? How? I don't know. Like, it was such a weird conversation. Like, how would you eat that thing?
I was expecting her to say like with my mouth and like make like a blowjob kind of.
I thought he was going for a sexual joke, but I don't think he was. Like, I thought that's where that was supposed to be going, but it truly did not seem to be the direction.
It was a random fruit out of all the fruit. I'd be like, oh, I could go for a mango. Like,
I mean, mango's delicious.
you eat like a mango if you get a fruit salad and it's in there, but you don't go out to buy a mango.
No, you're right. Okay, you don't go out and buy a mango, but I should. I mean,
Mango for me falls into that slightly too inconvenient to eat. I like mango.
I saw a TikTok recently that mangoes you're supposed to peel like a banana.
Yeah, I saw that too. There's a way you can like cut the end and it does just peel
No,
like
you
a
just
banana
peel it. No, you
Well,
just
yeah,
you
whatever. But I have seen that.
Yeah.
There's still like a hardened center to it, right? Like there's a part of it you can't really eat.
Yeah, in the center.
So you have to like cut it a certain way.
Like a pineapple almost.
Yeah, but it's more wide and more like a rectangle in the middle, like an inconvenient.
Sure, it's an ugly
rectangle.
fruit.
I'm waiting, by the way, for the comment somewhere. These idiots don't even know how to cut a mango.
I know how to cut a mango. I've cut many a mango in my day.
Mango, fuck yourself.
Chris Kattan?
No.
Hey, don't talk
The
to
Rock,
Chris like
wasn't
that.
it?
No, Chris Kattan was mango.
Oh.
Well, what about Mongo?
So as we're having this conversation about mangoes, we have the doorbell ringing again with some powerful knocks. And Laura's like, oh, that's Paul. That's his knock. And it's like, it sounds like I'm here to kill you type of knocking.
He's also ringing the bell while he's doing it.
Yeah. Laura goes to open the door. And as soon as she opens it, he's like, I can explain everything. It's not my fault. It was events. It was some real nasty events. I missed you so much. The two are hugging, and there's a quick cut to like back in the bedroom area where just Steve's holding the vibrator up like it's his dick. Like such a weird cut. And he's like, you gonna let me watch you with this? And she's like, no, of course not, you pervert. After all that from earlier.
I love that though, that it was such a game that she won't even concede to like doing it to say thank you. She's like, no, you fucking weirdo, I'm not doing this shit.
And then they start like laying in bed, and she's telling Steve how Laura's favorite thing about Paul is his big dick. Like, what a weird.
Now, are we to maybe I missed something, but are we supposed to? Are we to assume that she knows his dick size just because of her sister?
Yeah,
I think so,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Because I thought maybe that they had a thing too at one point.
no, I think they just tell each other everything, like
Okay,
standard
all right.
sister stuff. Steve gets back with well, he might have a big dick, but I bet he can't do a dick dance. And it's like, should I do my dick dance?
I want to know what his dick dance was.
I'm guessing he just kept flexing his dick.
Yeah, just dick flexing. That's probably it.
Because yeah, I mean,
What else
little-
could it be?
there's a little skipping back and forth, and we're seeing, them having that conversation, Laura and Paul in the other room having theirs. When we get back to that room again, it's like, I guess the show's going on, right? You see him holding like the sheet up, so it's almost like a puppet show.
With both hands, though, everything he's doing with the dick is handless.
Yeah, he's doing his little dick
Yeah.
dance.
Now, this is where she says that he's got a little piece of loo roll stuck in his foreskin. I don't have a foreskin, so I was a little thrown off at this. Do you have to clean that out after you go pee?
Generally, whether you're in a foreskin or no foreskin situation, there's probably little reason to ever have to wipe your dick off to dry it.
Maybe I'm right, and the wiping is really the front to back, and he goes really hard, and it comes up and hits his dick.
I actually thought that maybe that had something to do with the performative dick dance.
Oh, like a little
Well,
hat?
maybe it was a little wet because he was ready to go.
But why was there still toilet paper there?
Maybe it was an after jizz cleanup.
Oh, you know what? An after sex cleanup
That's a
makes
good
sense.
call, Nick. He was probably wiping it after fucking.
After fucking.
But you wouldn't use toilet paper.
You also wouldn't do. I wouldn't do a lot of the things this guy is doing.
Sure.
So
He's grubby.
I don't think he's got a clean towel hanging around.
That's what I was gonna say. I could see him not having clean laundry and wiping himself off with toilet paper or something gross like that. Like,
I do want to go back real quick because despite all this dick puppet talk, there was a good line in the kitchen that like I want to go over when Paul and Laura are talking and he's talking about, like we have a bond where, we're going to get married. And she goes, yeah, like to become one. And he goes, what, why'd you say that? And because of the Spice Girls song, and he's like getting nervous that she knows something. She's like, that's like a saying, like to become one. Like, yeah, it is.
Paul's a straight up gaslighter too. He convinces her she's wrong when he's the fucking cheater and stuff.
It's like perfect because it's like perfectly symbiotic because he's a gaslighter and she's a pushover. So it's just like a cycle of awfulness between the two of them.
Because like they walk into the living room area like right after that conversation, and she's like, when they're asking if everything's okay with them, she's like, yeah, I was just being silly.
His character clearly takes a turn later too, because like without trying to look ahead, when you just do like your notes and you're looking up the character, he was described as like Laura's husband and so-and-so's boyfriend. And you're like, oh, so his character goes in very interesting directions apparently at some point.
Yeah, he's his alibi is that he's just at his buddy's house. His phone he forgot to call. She's like, he's forgetful like that. I'm too far the opposite way. That's why we're the perfect couple. And then Becky goes, oh, Steve is just doing a dick dance. And I'm like, what the fuck? I would be so fucking mad if I was Steve in that moment.
I don't know though, because it's like, I don't know, if my wife said that about me to one of you, I'd be like, oh, that's funny because it's one of your close friends. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, it's less weird when it's to people who know you, and they'd be like, well, of course he's doing a dick dance, whatever the fuck that is.
I just think there's certain things that any couple does that, like, I think when you're with someone that, like, when you're at their point of relationship and you totally let your guard down, I feel like, yeah, Steve's comfortable doing that with Becky. It doesn't mean he wants.
Yes, but you lose that higher ground when you do your dick dance with guests in the house.
Also true.
In a very small house, too.
It was a private screening.
I mean, he did have the sheet up.
I get private screening.
Like, a what? And he's like, nothing. If you guys are okay, why don't you just treat yourselves to a nice meal deal? Get some air. And then and Becky's like, don't let Paul do a dick dance, Laura. You have someone's eye out with that great big thing.
Paul is so fucking excited to have an entire room talking about how big his dick is. This dude is beaming from ear
He's
to
like,
ear.
yeah, I would.
He gets so into it.
I would too. I think any of us would.
Oh yeah, if ever that situation would come up, it won't. I think we'd all be very excited.
In a room full of goldfish, maybe.
Luckily, they'd forget, so you could keep doing it over and over again.
Yeah, the way the conversation's evolving at that point, and oh, no chance of Steve doing that, huh? Like, oh yeah, real funny. And then they start getting, I'm like, oh, is it small, Steve? It's like, no, to be fair, it's not small. It's just, it's not exactly going to split you in two. Like, he's like, oh my God. I could just imagine, like, being in the room and being in Steve's situation.
He has
at that
incredible patience where I would have been like, hey, he cheated.
Yeah.
Immediately, like, hey, fuck all you guys. I'm going to ruin your marriage.
Yeah, he holds on way longer than I would have.
Way longer than anyone would have.
Yeah. I mean, what did he also say that, like, if he came, he had to come in like a postage stamp?
That was one of the jokes. They said he couldn't find the tissue, so he used a stamp. And Laura, like his girlfriend's sister is like, hey, why did they invent the microscope? So Steve could find his dick. Like, they're all getting on him pretty hard.
It's a little mean, especially for her. Like, Laura, like, hey, you get out of here. You can't say that.
He basically says, I'm average, I measured. And then they go off on him for that, too.
Yeah.
Every guy is measured, listeners, FYI.
I mean, he says he measured the center. It's like however many centimeters, 2 inches is 5.9 inches, which I think is average.
There's a point where Steve's kind of trying to shoot out a warning, like, hey, knock it off. Because the first time he goes like, hey, why don't you go back to Iggy's? Which I felt was like his way of saying, hey, stop.
Yeah, shut
Like,
the fuck up or this will get weird.
Before I say something else.
Yeah.
They kind of kept going. So, as the conversation goes, I felt like that was the warning shot. And then the follow-up to that stamp conversation was, I bet when Paul has to wake, he has to use the whole duvet. He's like, yeah, I do. Like, he loves this stuff.
The whole duvet.
Which we learned on a previous episode, Gordo did not know what a duvet was.
Was it that he didn't believe that they were real?
That may have been it, yeah.
What's the I did miss on this joke. I don't know if this was something that I just don't catch the reference. The little pens?
I couldn't pick up on that either, yeah.
I didn't know what that was.
Yeah, what was the context of that one?
You're the inspiration for those little pens and Argos, aren't you, love? I assumed Argos was like a supermarket chain or something.
Yeah, because they mentioned a different store later. Argos is a store. I'm looking at pens on their website.
Seem like regular pens to me.
Yeah, it's just like school shop.
They're pens, not pen 15s.
4-pack of Papermate.
All right, well, whatever that joke was supposed to be. But this was like, I'll say this. Steve bringing it up, although I don't think I think he just had a breaking point, but what a perfect way to do it. It comes up, Paul's dick's so big he can't wear shorts. He goes, oh, that's funny because he can't keep it in his trousers either. Like, got him.
Like, and we're fucking off to the races now.
He has really good facial acting there too. He goes immediately like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Like you can tell he's like, whoa, whoops.
Yeah, because now it's like, what's that supposed to mean?
That guy. Seriously.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
He kept his patience way longer than any of us would have.
He's in a room with 3 people saying that he has a little dick, just making jokes at him. Yeah, he had a good run. He broke at a point where anyone else would have broken by
lasted
then
longer
too.
than I did, yeah.
He still
would've,
regrets
yeah.
it though, is what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, as soon as you say it, he knows like the oops. It's like earlier in the episode where he mentioned his ex-girlfriend.
Could be because Paul's fucking huge.
Yeah.
Probably fuck him up if he gets mad.
Yeah, it's a big
Yeah,
dude.
that's what I was thinking.
He ends up playing like a Game of Thrones character later. Like he's big enough to play a fucking warlock or whatever.
Or he could hit him with that giant dick and he'd be dead.
It's true. It's like a hammer.
It's weird because this is the point too where now they're trying to figure out what he meant by that. Hey, what did that mean? What did that mean? And then this is the only part, as much as I like the writing, this is the only part I thought it was a little forced. Because now Becky puts 2 and 2 together with the Spice Girls and stuff out of nowhere. Hey, why were you and Dan talking about Spice
I
Girls
thought
earlier?
the same exact thing. How did you make that leap?
That was like just too much of a connection. Like, and I'll credit this writing is very good and realistic, but that was the one point where there needed to be something else there for her to make that connection. It just didn't make sense.
Yeah, if he said like, can't keep it in your pants, and then said like, spice up your life or something, or you need something, right?
Yeah, so she's bringing up the whole, what was that you were talking about going back to front with a Spice Girl?
Yeah, she wouldn't have made that connection because she didn't even know he was on the phone with him.
Yeah, she was in the bathroom the whole time.
The only context she heard was she heard him saying that with the neighbor, and that's it. So it wouldn't even been like, oh, she must have been talking about Paul. Like,
Right. It was too far of a stretch. So now it's like now there's more attention on Paul because the way that Steve's behaving and can't answer any of these questions. So now he's being pressed again. Where were you last night, Paul? Laura's saying, tell me you can have this ring back. And he goes, okay, Steve's got it all wrong. I may not have stayed at Iggy's, but I knew I didn't do anything wrong. I was at a museum.
This is the worst lying of all time.
And I like when he said museum, there's a cut to Steve and Becky both in bed, like both independently reacting to what they heard, like not with each other. They're both kind of going though, like, what? Like just the worst possible fucking alibi you could create for yourself.
You know, all those all-night museums we go to?
Just like a general museum when she asks which one. And then he says, I bumped into a very nice young lady at the museum who happens to do some agency work as a Mel C lookalike.
please leave that part out.
Yeah, he then fucks himself by adding more Spice Girl stuff into it.
Yeah.
First of all, stick to your lie. Don't even fucking change it.
Yeah, he was at Iggy's. I was at Iggy's. I was at Iggy's.
The exhibits were so fascinating, he stayed all night. That's what she's like, you bastard, and like runs off. So now the two girls go to the bathroom. Paul's like trying to chase them in, and like, you know, they slam the door in his face. And he just runs over to Steve, you little shit.
Oh, Steve's response is, what have I done? Like, you did everything. You did everything possible.
And right at this point, the doorbell rings. It's Dan again.
With 2 melons.
Holding 2 melons. He's like, hey, Steve, they were 2 for $1.50. Let's hang out. Eat them with spoons. Like,
So endearing, though.
It is endearing, and it certainly makes up for the stolen cookie.
imagine just like imagine just like hanging out with like if I was with any of you and we're just like sitting on a couch, just with a melon cut in half, just spooning it, watching television together. It's so weird.
They do it in I Love You Man with the pineapples.
I do love pineapple.
I would do it with pineapple. I would not do it with melon.
Were these, Joe, these were not cantaloupe, right?
These are not cantaloupes, no. But
Are you sure they weren't married? Because they cantaloupe.
Hey, oh.
I don't like cantaloupe at all.
Neither do I. The reason why I can't eat cantaloupe is because of Nick. I had cantaloupe at your house when I was a kid.
And there's a dick-shaped hole in it, and you realize what you had done after you ate it?
No, so I ate a whole bunch, and because I never ate them at my house, and I think your mom or dad were cutting them. And I ate a whole bunch, and I was like, oh, that's really good. And I went home to my house, and I threw them all up. And then I've never had a cantaloupe since.
Nice.
Joe, you love cantaloupe, right?
It's the worst fruit known to man.
Well, Joe has like a weird aversion to the cantaloupe skin.
Joe has like a cantaloupe phobia.
Yeah. It's like the I have very few like fears or phobias that aren't grounded in something that has any realism in it, but cantaloupe skins make my fucking skin crawl.
So I was going to say, I was just at your house not even a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
Your parents bring a fruit platter. There's cantaloupe in it cut already. That doesn't bother you.
Nope.
Okay.
But do you like it?
No.
Like, okay, yeah. No, I think it's probably maybe the most overrated fruit of all time.
I'm just going to show up to your house with a cantaloupe skin mask on, like, silence something out.
You'd get punched in the face out of like an automatic reaction. I'd feel very bad afterwards.
Once Joe finds the gloves, yeah, Joe's not touching his hand to that cantaloupe mask or honeydew. Cantaloupe mask.
Well, Jay, there was a time your mom was like, hey, Joe, catch. And I turned around and she threw a cantaloupe at me. And my immediate response was to throw it like Roger Clemens back at your mom. And I was like, I'm so sorry.
I don't know why this just made me think of this, but I also remember being at Jay's house and Joe got hammered and threw up on a rug that had been installed that day.
Brand new rug.
Yeah.
Brand new rug. And then Jay did that to me.
We've talked about this. Yeah, I believe I threw up in your rug first, and that might have been the karma back. I don't remember.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
We weren't even allowed on that rug with shoes.
I was lied on it in my underwear, and then I threw up on it.
Yeah, luckily you threw up red for some reason. It was like
There was a lot of red wine that night.
To go back real quick, I don't want to stay on this tangent too long because I do want to finish up the episode. You guys talk about cantaloupe being a pointless fruit. I'll say that's not the pointless melon in the fruit salad. It's honeydew.
Well, they're both equally lame.
They're filler
Yeah.
I'll
fruit.
take a honeydew over a cantaloupe.
No, honeydew.
If I had to pick, yeah, I would pick honeydew, but I don't like honeydew with yogurt is actually okay.
I don't like any of them.
I'll tell you, as a man who
The only good melon's a watermelon, boys.
it's so
Agreed.
different than the other ones. So as a man who sold produce for many years, cantaloupes outsell honeydew like 10-1. Cantaloupes sell way, way more. Honeydew, to me, is the thing that exists in the fruit salad because of the color break. So it only exists to get something like bright and green in there to to get away from all the oranges and reds of everything else.
I'll take green grapes over honeydew any day.
I love green grapes.
Green grapes are expensive, though, so that's why they put the honeydew in.
But yeah, it's the cantaloupe and the cantaloupe.
Cantaloupe.
The cantaloupe.
The cantaloupe.
The cantaloupe and the honeydew. That's just cheap fillers. That's all it is.
And the peanalope.
The stuff you get bummed out about when all the strawberries are gone.
So, but to flashback, yeah, Dan shows up with the 2 melons, and obviously the worst possible time for him to be there. Now everyone's arguing. Laura's asking Paul, did she? oh no. Dan says to Paul when he sees him at the end of the hallway, "Oh, Paul, did you give her what she wanted? What she really, really wanted?"
Can I just point out that everything that's happening's happened in real time? There hasn't been any real cuts,
Yeah.
like time jumps or anything.
Yeah.
That means he's been to his apartment 3 times in less than 20 minutes.
And gone down to buy fruit.
Yeah.
Maybe they live above a fruit stand.
I don't want to see my neighbor 3 times in a week.
They got rid of the fruit stand that I would go to in Boston, right on Washington. I would go by, I would just grab some fruit like every other day, and then one day it was just a tchotchke like tourist gift shop, and I was
Ah,
Very
yeah, I know what
upset.
you're talking about.
I know where that one is. Yeah, that's a bummer.
There was a little bit of comforting with the two girls in the bathroom, and you just see Laura like sad. Like, what's so good about Mel C? I never liked Mel C's music, have I? Like wanting the validation from his sister. No, you never did. She did that one song with Bryan Adams though. but yeah, no, we never liked her.
Another song that was very popular in the UK and not popular here.
Yeah, I don't even know what the song was, so I'd have to look it up.
That's called When You Were Gone. It's from 98, so like it's from comeback era Bryan Adams and right around when the Spice Girls were big.
This is before or after the Robin Hood song he did.
This is after. I think that's 91.
You cut back into the bedroom area. Paul's pissed. He's like, I'm so enraged. And he like kicks the mug. And you just see that giant spider again. And he just, no hesitation, no fear, just steps on it like, spider. And like, just reacts like, because, spiders are,
He acts like a human.
yeah, like they don't, like spiders don't bother me like that. So I wouldn't just want to kill it but I wouldn't have a problem. Like, you know what I mean? Where you see Steve, who just like been freaking out and jumping on the bed all day at the thought of it, just see, Paul with, nothing, just go, and just step on it and not making a big deal and like instantly feeling emasculated.
yeah.
That doesn't clean the spider.
Nope.
Yeah, he's just letting spider guts hang out on his floor now.
He does, Paul does say to Steve, and how did you know I went back to front with her? He's like, you did? What is it?
He starts to explain it too.
It starts to explain it. After all that, Paul starts like going towards the bathroom. He's trying to talk to Laura. You can like hear them in the background, like talking back, like arguing back and forth, basically. And then Steve uses that opportunity to go and grab that plate with the toast and drops it in the carpet. And then he like goes to pick it back up to put back on the plate, and just like one piece has all that like hair and stuff from the
That's
dirty
so
carpet.
fucking gnarly.
Oh, I thought it was the dead spider on it.
That's what I thought they were gonna go for too.
I thought that's what was going to happen. I thought he was going to flip it and you were going to see the whole dead spider, but it was just like hairs, and it was like almost grosser.
I feel like his character wouldn't pull the dead spider off. He wouldn't want to touch it.
Both gross.
I thought that's what happened, and they just did a bad job of showing it.
No, it was like just
No.
hairs and stuff. It was gross.
It was just their disgusting floor, yeah.
And then like soon after that, Becky opens the door and like lets Paul in. Like, so now the two couples kind of end up with each other. So she's heading back to the room, and Paul's now in the bathroom with Laura.
When Paul goes to the bathroom, he just goes, "It stinks in here," and you finally hear the toilet flush that has not been flushed the entire episode.
Yeah, how is the worst character in the world a cheater? Like the one who kills the bug, flushes the toilet, does everything they should be doing, and he's a piece of shit.
He fixes some of the
Yeah.
problems for them.
Hey, I mean, you can be a piece of shit and still not want pieces of shit in like floating around the house.
There's been so many opportunities to flush that shit, and everyone just leaves it.
And it's true. The two girls were just hanging out in the poo room.
Stinking like poo.
Yeah.
She didn't flush it after she shit. He didn't flush it after discovering she left the shit. They went in there to talk. They didn't flush it. Like, multiple opportunities.
So now you have Becky like just kind of laying in bed with Steve again, and like, oh, I can't wait for that wedding. And he's saying like, oh, I really have to piss. How long are they going to be? It's like, as long as they need. And like he like looks over to the sink in the corner. She's like, don't you dare. And you would think like with all this, like she doesn't mind taking a shit in front of him, like, and all this stuff, but like the idea of him taking an emergency piss in the sink that's next to the bed,
Yeah, that was off limits.
Yeah.
that's
That
too
was a little
much.
silly,
And I was thinking like, that's not even that bad. To be honest, if I was in a pinch like that, I probably would do the same.
Did you just run the water while you're doing it?
Maybe it's that, you know how uncleanly they are. Maybe they don't scrub the sink ever. So if she fills it with water and has
Or
peas
maybe
in
that's
there,
the time
like,
afterwards. Maybe this time you do.
Did we notice if there were any dishes in there? Did we get a glimpse inside?
No, there wasn't much over there. It was because they had the kitchen. She's like, where's the spider? He's like, oh, I threw him out the window. Wow, very brave. Someone's grown some balls.
I don't understand that lie.
I don't either. Like, was it on the toast and we just they didn't do a good enough job of showing it?
No, I think he discarded it. He may have even thrown it after he stepped on it. I don't recall now.
I just don't understand. What's the point of dropping it in the exact spot the spider was killed? Like, you
It
could have dropped
landed
it
where he
anywhere.
was,
Yeah,
like-
like it landed in there. I feel like the spider was on it.
No, because it was too big of a spider. You would have noticed it.
Yeah, but it's a squished spider. If it landed on
They
its
flipped both
guts,
sides because I thought that was going to be the reveal, but it was just hair.
Me too, yeah.
Yeah.
maybe that hair was spider legs.
No, it was hair, clearly.
But it is weird because like then the transition in the conversation here is like she brings it up and then immediately goes, "Can I have the toast?" He's like, "Oh yeah, sure." And then he hands her the toast because he picked all the shit off of it.
Also, toast needs to be warm. If you're gonna eat toast, it
Sure.
needs to be
Yeah, it's not
consumed
good
warm.
at this point.
You don't make toast and then eat it 20 minutes later while it's been sitting out, regardless of the fact that it fell on the floor.
She's eating her cold toast, and he's like staring at her because like us as a viewer are going, because we know what was just on it.
Yeah, dead spider.
And he keeps going like, "Are you enjoying the toast?" Yeah, why? I don't know. I'm just really glad you're enjoying the toast. All right. Thanks for allowing me to eat it in bed. And then like that's kind of like where that conversation goes. And yeah, it is kind of weird because they make it there's so many things that point to the spider should have been on it, but
Yeah,
they
but they
didn't
don't ever
actually do it.
Maybe they couldn't make it look right.
It's
Yeah,
possible.
maybe.
Seems like they try to do a lot of stuff in one take. So to do that, they would have had to have like the pre-spidered toast that he drops, and maybe they kept just seeing it when it fell.
How do you like your toast? Pre-spidered.
And that's pretty much where it ends. It's just the two of them kind of like sitting there smiling at one another while she eats toast in bed. And then like you still kind of hear the other two arguing in the back, and then the music cuts in, and then we hit the credits.
I do like that they use this Lulu song apparently as the theme going forward. So in the first episode, you get it to end it, and then after that, it starts the show. I kind of like that idea where like you start the pilot episode with no music at the beginning, you play it at the very end, and it leads into the next episode.
That is a cool concept.
It's like how Happy Days used to start with Rock Around the Clock, and the Happy Days theme was the closing credits.
For a couple seasons, right?
Yeah, it was at least the first season for sure. And then it transitions.
But hey, we already had this discussion on our Happy Days episode, so people should go back and listen to that.
Yeah, go back and listen to our Happy Days episode. But yeah, so in any event, yeah, we've talked for a long time about this show. I don't have a lot of outside stuff to say. I looked it up. There wasn't a lot of info on it that I could
wasn't
see.
much for trivia.
Yeah, there is not much at all.
So yeah, this was like a new show to me. So like, I don't have a lot. I don't really know any of these actors. Not that there's many. We see very few people in the show. We only meet 5 people in the whole episode. So yeah, so really, unless anyone has anything else they wanted to add, we might as well get into the green light or cancel. So to kick off the voting for January, Joe, starting with you.
I loved how contained it was. It's pretty impressive to have all these characters come in and out, and the entire thing takes place in basically 2.5 rooms. And you never feel crazy claustrophobic. You never feel like you're bored. You want to go anywhere else. I had not seen this show before. I definitely will watch this again. I think this is going to be super funny to see where this is all going. I think when we did the episode of Mad About You, we're like, this relationship feels weird because it feels so real. This is like the complete opposite of that relationship, where it's weird and it feels so real, but there's such different relationships, but you still totally understand it. I had a lot of fun with this. This is a green light.
Berg.
Yeah, I'm with Joe on the green light for this one. It's weird because I started watching the show and I didn't like it at first. And the more I understood it, the more my opinion changes. And then I started adding that laugh track in my head. It was almost like, like the Big Bang Theory. Like they tell you when to laugh. And it's like, it's not funny. It's really awkward if you watch it without the laugh track. Well, I think this show is kind of like that, but it works that way. Like it's that uncomfortable humor that like works. I like the cast. They're relatable. If they did some of the fights they did on a normal sitcom, I would complain about seeing a couple fight. But because you get their whole like life in this episode, you're like, oh, that's just them. That's funny. And it just worked for me. I really enjoyed the show. And I too am probably going to check out more of it. So green light.
Yeah, so for me, Ferg, when I started the episode, I didn't like it. And I was like, oh, this is going to be a fucking lot. Because it's a little dry. It drags a little bit. It's like, because it's just like in the one apartment, it just doesn't, you really have to like find yourself holding interest. And in the beginning, I don't know what's going on. So I'm like drifting off a little bit. But as you learn more about them and you get the full scope of what the show really is and really understand the couple better, like I warmed up to it. And maybe up front, a little too much pee-pee poo-poo stuff for me in the beginning too, where I was like, I was a little adverse to that. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and give it the green light too. I was, by the end of the episode, way more invested in the characters than when I was first introduced to them. So they did a good job of like reeling me in as I went along. Nick?
Yeah, I'm not straying from the pack so far. This is a green light for me. Ferg kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, but I think one of the things that stood out, and I agree with Ferg, this one, once you kind of got a feel for what it was, you had a better appreciation for it. It was also like masterfully shot, and I feel like I'm not like a cinema, I'm no director of photography or anything like that, but I feel like you can really appreciate the work that went into like making a show like this work, especially in like a small environment that they never leave. The fact that they're willing to put that kind of work into it too, and the fact that it's really funny. I really like the characters. It's an interesting concept so far. I mean, there's just like a lot of really cool things about this show that I am interested in seeing more of for sure. So yeah, it's a pretty easy green light. And I will do my best. I know I say it a lot, but I will do my best to keep watching this one. I want to see more.
Gordo.
All right, so yeah, I'm with you guys. For the first like 3/4 of the show, I didn't like it. I didn't understand it. I don't understand a lot of things, but I didn't understand the show. I was like, is this even a sitcom? For like most of the episode until Steve comes in. Because like even like the awkward neighbor, he was awkward, but it was like not sitcom humor. Like it was weird, like dark humor. But like once they started making fun of his dick, I was like, oh, okay. Now it's clicking. And from that point, even though it was like the shortest part of the episode, that won me over on the whole thing. So I don't know if going forward it's going to be like a similar setup, but if the crescendo is always going to be like that funny, that's going to get a green light from me. Will I go out of my way to watch it again or seek it out? Maybe not, but if it comes on, I won't turn it off. So green light for me.
Yeah, well, you know what? That's a 5 for 5.
Way to go, Bex.
So thank you, Bex, for presenting this one to us. Thank you to everyone who listens. Listening, we have 4 more weeks of January ahead, and I'll be completely honest, we have a 6th week coming in a little bit after because I can't count. So we'll get to that later. But we have to slide. We actually will have episode 200 happen before we can do that other one. So there's kind of a 6 pick that'll pop in for 201. We'll get into that when the time comes, but to not make this too long, thank you to everybody who's listening. We'll catch you again next week with another episode. Again, S1E1pod.com. That's where all the stuff is. Do all the things. Follow, subscribe, hit us up, buy a shirt, do all that. But until then, thank you for listening. Catch you next week. Goodbye.
I think we got the best Julie and her big fucking tits.